My brother always acted like he supported my success, but when I found anonymous emails trying to destroy my job application, the writing looked too familiar. I followed the trail, only to uncover a years-long envy he'd hidden behind fake smiles and proud of you messages. The applause echoed in the school auditorium, and I remember turning my head to see my brother standing, clapping louder than anyone else. His grin stretched wide, his voice carried above the crowd. "That's my sibling." For a moment I felt proud, warmed by his support. But as I walked off the stage, medal in hand, I caught a flicker in his eyes. Something sharp, something that didn't match the smile. It was gone in an instant, replaced by a pat on my back and the familiar words, "I'm proud of you." Those words became his trademark. Every achievement I had, big or small, he repeated them. "I'm proud of you," he'd say after exams, after presentations, even after casual milestones. His tone was steady, his smile convincing. I trusted it. I believed he was my biggest supporter, the one person who wanted me to succeed. He attended my school events faithfully. I'd glance into the crowd and see him cheering, clapping the loudest, sometimes whistling to draw attention. Teachers noticed, friends admired, and I felt lucky to have a brother who cared. Before interviews, he'd sit with me offering advice. "Remember to keep eye contact," he'd say. "Don't rush your answers." His words sounded helpful and I carried them with me, convinced he wanted the best for me. Yet beneath the surface there were moments that unsettled me. Sometimes his compliments felt rehearsed, like lines from a script. He'd say, "You're amazing," but his eyes would drift, his tone slightly off. I brushed it aside, grateful for his presence. After all, who questions kindness? I told myself I was lucky even when unease lingered. Family gatherings painted another picture. Relatives would ask about my achievements, and before I could answer, he'd jump in. "Yes, they did great," he'd say, then add, "I helped them prepare." His words twisted the story, weaving himself into my success. At first I thought it was harmless. Siblings share credit, don't they? But over time I noticed the pattern. He wasn't just proud, he was inserting himself, reshaping the narrative so my victories became ours, or worse, his. One evening at a family dinner, my aunt congratulated me on a scholarship. Before I could thank her, my brother leaned forward. "I told them to apply," he said confidently. "I pushed them to go for it." My parents nodded, impressed by his supposed guidance. I sat there, silent, my fork heavy in my hand. The scholarship had been my effort, my late nights, my determination. Yet in that moment it belonged to him. The cracks began to show in small, almost forgettable incidents. A document I needed for an application went missing, only to reappear days later in his room. "Oh, I must have picked it up by mistake," he said casually. I believed him. Another time, a teacher mentioned I hadn't submitted a form, though I was sure I had. My brother shrugged, offering to help me organize better. I thanked him, unaware of the pattern forming. Missed opportunities piled up. A friend once told me they had emailed me about a project, but I never saw the message. Later I found it in the trash folder of our shared computer account. He claimed it was a glitch. I wanted to believe him. After all, he was the one who always said, "I'm proud of you." The mask of support was convincing. He played the role perfectly, attentive, encouraging, protective. To everyone else he was the ideal brother, the one who stood by me. And to me he was both comfort and confusion. I couldn't reconcile the warmth of his words with the unease in my gut. One night I lay awake replaying his actions. The applause, the advice, the twisted stories at family dinners. I wondered if I was imagining things, if my doubts were unfair. But then I remembered the flicker in his eyes, the sharpness behind the smile. It haunted me, whispering that beneath the mask something darker waited. Still I silenced the thought. He was my brother. He said he was proud. And I wanted to believe him. The unease that had haunted me for years finally sharpened into something undeniable the night I opened my inbox and saw a message from the company I had applied to. At first I thought it was a routine update. But as I read, my chest tightened. They thanked me for my application but explained they had received concerning information about my character and reliability. Attached was a copy of an anonymous email filled with lies, claims that I was irresponsible, dishonest, and unfit for the role. I sat frozen, staring at the words. The sentences were sharp, deliberate, and oddly familiar. The phrasing carried a rhythm I knew too well. Certain expressions, like "always careless" and "never follows through," echoed things I had heard before, whispered in passing, disguised as advice. My brother's voice. I tried to shake the thought. It felt impossible, too cruel. But the more I read, the more the writing style gnawed at me. He had a habit of repeating certain phrases, of structuring sentences in a way that sounded rehearsed. And here they were, staring back at me from an email meant to destroy me. I couldn't let it go. I printed the email and laid it on my desk, comparing it to notes he had written in the past. Birthday cards, reminders, even casual lists. The similarities were undeniable. The way he used commas, the choice of words, the tone that pretended to be formal but carried a personal sting. My stomach churned. The next day I checked our shared computer. He often used it late at night, and I wondered if traces remained. My hands shook as I opened the drafts folder. There they were, half-written emails, some deleted, some saved accidentally. One draft mirrored the anonymous message almost word for word. My breath caught. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was proof. I dug deeper, scrolling through browser history, email accounts, and saved conversations. I found logins at odd hours, activity that didn't match mine. There were searches about anonymous email services and how to block sender identity. Each discovery felt like a knife twisting deeper. Then came the final blow. Hidden in a folder labeled Miscellaneous, I found a document filled with notes. Lines like "make them look unreliable and parents will believe me if I say I helped" stared back at me. It wasn't just envy, it was strategy. He had been planning, calculating, weaving lies behind the mask of support. I leaned back in the chair, my head pounding. The realization hit hard. My brother had been sabotaging me for years. Every missed opportunity, every misplaced document, every twisted story, it all connected. His envy had been hiding behind fake smiles and "proud of you" messages. The weight of betrayal pressed down on me. I remembered his applause at the auditorium, his advice before interviews, his bragging at family dinners. All of it now felt poisoned. His words weren't encouragement, they were camouflage. I couldn't keep it inside. That evening I confronted him. He was in the living room, scrolling through his phone, relaxed as if nothing had happened. I walked in holding the printed email. "Did you send this?" I asked, my voice steady but sharp. He looked up, startled. "What are you talking about?" I placed the paper on the table. "The writing is yours. The drafts are on the computer. I know it was you." For a moment his mask slipped. His eyes widened, his mouth opened, but no words came. Then he laughed, a hollow sound. "You're imagining things." "Why would I do that?" I leaned closer. "Because you've been doing it for years." "I found the notes. I found everything." His face hardened, the smile fading. "You don't understand," he muttered. "You've always had everything. I just wanted—" He stopped, biting his lip. The room felt heavy, the air thick with tension. I stared at him, waiting for honesty, but all I saw was fear and anger tangled together. The emotional storm inside me was unbearable. Anger surged. How could he betray me like this? Sadness followed. He was my brother, the one I trusted most. And beneath it all, a hollow ache of betrayal. His "proud of you" messages now sounded like mockery, cruel reminders of the mask he wore. I walked away, unable to stay in the same room. My hands trembled, my chest ached, and my mind replayed every moment we had shared. The laughter, the advice, the applause, all of it now tainted. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The truth was clear, undeniable. My brother's envy had been the shadow behind my struggles, the hidden hand pulling me down. And though the storm inside me raged, I knew one thing: the mask was gone. I walked out of the living room that night with my heart pounding, the printed email still clenched in my hand. The storm inside me hadn't settled, but something shifted. I knew I couldn't let his betrayal define me. For too long, I had lived under the weight of his false support, his carefully crafted mask. Now that the truth was exposed, I had a choice: remain broken or rebuild myself stronger than before. The first step was reclaiming my confidence. I started small, reminding myself of the achievements that were truly mine. I pulled out old certificates, projects, and notes, laying them across my desk like pieces of a puzzle. Each one told a story of effort, late nights, and determination. They weren't his, they were mine. I spoke them aloud, almost like affirmations. I earned this. I built this. I deserve this. Slowly, the shame he had planted began to fade, replaced by a quiet strength. I also began to change the way I carried myself. At work, I stopped second-guessing my ideas. In meetings, I spoke with clarity, refusing to shrink into silence. My colleagues noticed. One afternoon, a teammate pulled me aside and said, "You've been different lately, more confident. It's inspiring." Their words lit something inside me. For the first time, I felt seen for who I truly was, not through the distorted lens my brother had created. New opportunities followed. Freed from his shadow, I applied for positions I had once been too hesitant to pursue. I joined a project that required leadership, something I had avoided before, fearing failure. To my surprise, I thrived. The team respected my decisions and the project succeeded beyond expectations. My manager congratulated me, saying, "You've proven yourself in ways we didn't expect." That recognition was mine alone, untouched by sabotage. Friendships blossomed too. People who had once kept their distance began to reach out. I joined a local community group, where I met individuals who valued honesty and collaboration. We worked together on small initiatives, charity drives, neighborhood events, and each success reminded me that I had something real to offer. These friendships weren't built on envy or competition. They were built on trust. Then came the unexpected allies. One evening, I received a message from a former colleague who had once believed my brother's stories. "I owe you an apology," they wrote. "I thought you weren't reliable, but now I see the truth. You've shown resilience I admire." Their words weren't just validation. They were proof that the lies were unraveling. Even relatives who had once praised my brother began to shift. At a family gathering, my uncle pulled me aside. "I used to think he was the one guiding you," he admitted. "But now I realize you've been carrying yourself all along. I respect that." Hearing those words felt like a quiet victory, not because I needed their approval but because the truth was finally surfacing. Meanwhile, my brother's downfall became inevitable. The evidence I had uncovered didn't stay hidden. Whispers spread among relatives, colleagues, and friends. His reputation, once polished, began to crack. People noticed inconsistencies in his stories, questioned his behavior, and slowly distanced themselves. Invitations he once received stopped coming. His credibility slipped away, not because I exposed him loudly, but because the truth had a way of speaking for itself. I watched from a distance, not with glee but with calm detachment. Revenge wasn't necessary. His envy had already destroyed him. The mask he wore for years had shattered, and he was left facing the consequences of his own actions. My quiet victory wasn't about his downfall. It was about my rise. I stood taller, surrounded by people who valued me for who I was. My parents, once swayed by his manipulation, began to see me clearly. My mother hugged me one evening and whispered, "We should have trusted you sooner." My father nodded, his eyes heavy with regret but filled with pride. I realized the lesson wasn't about him. It was about me. It wasn't about proving him wrong or seeking revenge. It was about learning to never let envy rewrite my story again. My achievements were mine, my voice was mine, and my life was mine. One evening I walked through the park, the air cool against my skin, the sky painted with fading light. Children laughed in the distance, couples strolled hand in hand, and I felt a calm I hadn't known in years. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't living under his mask. I was simply myself, and that was enough.